before the start of the game would be for players to take a Wee Dram in order to set the mood. Take a card. Whoa! Auchentoshan! Maybe it'll be nice just to go dancing in the Lowlands, you know, like sometimes it's, you know, on the whiskey trail, it's sometimes really important to go in a new direction. So a triple distilled lowland whiskey. Also, I think the triple distilling that Auchentoshan is known for is borrowed from an Irish technique. So the Irish were well ahead of the Scots early on, and their whiskey was considered to be better refined. And that triple distilling is about creating that light character. I keep coming back to this little quote that I read today. Lowland whiskeys are light, and then he said, and sometimes that's just a nice way of saying bland. I see no age on this box, so we're dealing, I guess, with an NAS, just an A on it, no number. Feels like a nice tight package, so I like that. I really like the graphics. I like the muted sort of iron steel, I wouldn't say silver, but the white and then the way this copper color jumps out is really quite smart. I really like it. 750 milliliters, which is your standard 40% alcohol by volume. So that of course means that they got as much whiskey out of that cask as they could and add water to bring it down to the, you know, basically the minimum. You know, it's suggestive to put, but rather than reading through everything, you can just quickly think, all right, you know, we've got some citrus, we've got some casks in the back, an apricot or something like that, but the citrus look and just that little hand drawing with the little shading, it's really, I think it's quite attractive. Yeah, okay, well, I'll be interested to see how this whiskey, you know, what it looks like, what its colors are like, and you know, it's supposed to be a light whiskey, so let's pull it out and take a look. Was that a moon? Where did that come from? I mean, why a moon? What's going on? There's got to be a story there. I wonder if there's some liner notes. We'll keep looking. Here she comes. Wow. It's just beautiful. I love brand new, unopened bottle of single malt whiskey. They've got the triple still. They've got a nice sort of embossed or lifted glass. We are Scotland's only remaining distillery to insist on triple distilling every drop. Let's see if it'll put up a fight. You never know with these things. Okay. I think it's time. So, regardless, you're gonna open this and we're gonna taste this. And this is the moment that we love the most. It's just such a pure thing. Oop. Oh. That's a different thing altogether. There's a little light lemon pepper on the nose. It's a nice smell. It's completely different. It's inviting, it's fresh. And I will get a little more into it here. Yeah, more into the vanilla now, a little less on the pepper citrus. Every time I go back to nose it, I'm getting pretty much the same feel to it. So when you look at the box and it has that intense coppery sort of coloring writing, gold fleck, copper fleck on the box, it's outstanding, and it sort of translates a little bit towards this, but of course it's lighter. When you roll it, it's not, I mean, there's some leg to it, you know, as any whiskey would have, but I think a little lower in the viscosity. I think it's time to have a sip. It has a spring-like feel to it. It is light, but there is sort of a nice little peppery kick. You know, I think the citrus and the vanilla, it's all right there. You know, maybe it's the bourbon cask flavor that's coming through there in that sense of the wood, like the cask wood is melding with that vanilla and citrus. And it's nice on the nose and it's nice in the mouth. It is a sort of peppy little whiskey. It's delicious. Often the case with single malt whiskey. The second everything's kind of coming together, there's less surprise and more familiarity, and it's kind of rolling along now. It's an easy drinking whiskey with a nice flavor to it. Like, you're not losing much on flavor. You know, you can understand the lowland character, but it's a bright character. This would challenge bland, less intense. You know, it's not as intense an experience. It's more of a, you know, wander through a beautiful meadow on a spring day. So far, so good. Let's try maybe a third. Yeah, on that one, I got a little more like a grass dryness almost to it. I think the wood from from the cask is definitely holding it together. You definitely feel the citrus. Yeah, there's a peppiness to it. It's like a fast starter. Definitely not a finisher. Like, you know, like this whiskey isn't finishing in a notable way at all. It's all up front, pretty much all up front. But it's great up front. It's a completely different experience. Maybe that's the tie-in. You know, this particular map helps to draw that out. You start to think about what whiskey is doing in relation to its geography. And I think that's one of the most exciting things to do when you're drinking whiskey. That sense of place, that sense of connection to the land. And we've talked about this quite a bit, but it's a theme that you really can't tire of because it fuels your imagination for what you're drinking, and it helps lay a context out. So whether you're in a social gathering or whether you're having a moment by yourself while you're drinking, you can really tie into those thoughts, and that's really the connection. How do you put a number on this baby? First and foremost, you start with how much you paid for. So you're sitting at about the $65, maybe $66 mark. That's a good price. You know, it's still a lot of money, but considering that it provides something a little bit different and really interesting, I think that you settle in easily at a 3. I couldn't go to 4, and I'm hoping that I'm not going to 4 because I believe it's truly a 3, as opposed to me saying I'm just not going to give a Lowland a 4, which, you know, it's a great addition to any bar because you can go out and buy it, and it would be a great one to compare against. Like if you were to buy a Lafroig and you were to buy this whiskey, and you were to say to somebody who wasn't a whiskey drinker, you know, try each of these and tell me that these are the same. I think that would be a really interesting thing to do. And so maybe for that alone, to have a whiskey on your bar that sort of offsets maybe some of the more complex, flavorful whiskeys, you deserve your 3, you deserve a place on my bar. Makes me want to explore the Auchentoshan family a little further. Auchentoshan, nice job. Cheers. Wee Dram. Whoa! Auchentoshan!